We're looking at a breakdown of the Fuentes versus Owens conflict, specifically how these theories about alleged misconduct at Turning Point USA have escalated.
Yeah, escalated from something almost plausible like embezzlement to ancient Sumerian technology.
Exactly. So let's just get right into the critique.
This was a wild read. I mean, truly. You're wading through these allegations of money laundering.
Right?
And then suddenly you're just hit with time travel. And then you're back to something about trapdoors.
It feels like being trapped in a pinball machine.
It really does.
Which leads to our first the piece would benefit so much from organizing the conspiracy theories chronologically. It would illustrate the loss of credibility, instead of just listing them all randomly.
Because right now, the randomization just kills the impact. It totally undermines the author's point.
It does.
I found myself reading a section about maroon shirts, which, I don't know, sounds like a fashion crime.
Right.
And then the very next paragraph is about CIA mind control. It makes the whole argument feel circular.
Yes, like a frantic list rather than a structured analysis.
Exactly. A frantic list.
And the author's core thesis is actually brilliant. It's that line.
Oh, I know the one.
In a real investigation, the suspect list grows smaller. Here, it grows bigger.
Yes, that's the whole piece right there.
But the current structure completely fights that thesis. It creates this, flat plane where money embezzlement and time travel just sit side by side as equal.
And they're not equal. One is, theoretically possible, and the other is not.
To make the argument land, the structure has to physically demonstrate that widening effect. We need to feel that linear descent into absurdity.
So you're suggesting we treat the structure like a funnel, but in reverse, or maybe a spiral. Start with the normal crimes and spiral out into the madness.
It's the only way to really show the degradation of logic over time. I think we need 3 distinct phases here.
Okay.
The material itself acknowledges a baseline of plausibility, so we should start there. Phase 1 has to be the money.
The turning point money and embezzlement theory?
Yeah.
That anchors the reader?
Because even if it's not proven, embezzlement is a real physical crime. It happens.
It's grounded.
It's grounded, exactly.
Right. Then you move to phase 2, the international intrigue.
Okay.
The text mentions all these theories about Israel, France, Egypt being involved because Kirk was going to reveal something.
This is the bridge.
It's the perfect bridge. We've just left the office building and now we've entered, a geopolitical thriller.
It's a leap, but it's not a metaphysical leap yet.
Not yet. And then, once you've established that bridge, that's when you drop the hammer.
Phase 3.
Phase 3 is the metaphysical climax. This is where you put the CIA's Project Looking Glass. This is where you bring in the ancient Sumerian technology to see the future.
Oh, God.
And the idea that Charlie Kirk was a gifted child groomed by the agency.
And if you put that at the very end, the reader looks back at the simple embezzlement section.
And they realize just how far the train has come off the tracks.
That structural shift does all the heavy lifting for the author. Instead of just saying this is getting crazy, the reader actually feels the insanity rising.
They experience it.
Yeah.
But, even if we fix the structure, I stumbled hard on the language, the way the author talks about the subjects.
The tone.
Yeah, the tone. Shifting the language from all those colloquial insults to a more analytical dismantle, which has significantly strengthened the author's authority.
And their persuasiveness. The draft is drenched in vitriol. I mean, I counted Candy, Dingbat, Dogcrap, and Gunnar Hicklib in the first 2 pages.
It feels good to write when you're angry. I get it.
Totally. But reading it just feels cheap. It actually makes me trust the author less, not more.
It signals to a neutral reader that this is a hit piece, not an observation. When you call someone dog crap, you're not analyzing them.
You're just venting.
You're just venting. The suggestion here is to replace all that invective with really clinical descriptions of the behavior. The critique stings more when it's accurate than when it's insulting.
Okay, let's test that. The text quotes Ben Shapiro saying Owens is too stupid to insult.
Right.
And the author basically leans into that, just agreeing she's an idiot. How do you make that clinical?
You frame it around her reliance on unfalsifiable narrative. That's the key.
Okay.
The issue isn't that she's stupid. The issue is that she constructs theories that, by their very design, cannot be disproven.
So if there's no evidence, that's part of the conspiracy.
Exactly. And if there is evidence against her, well, that's just faked by the conspiracy.
It's a closed loop.
It is. And analyzing that closed loop is devastating. Calling her a dingbat is just noise. It doesn't accomplish anything.
Right. There's another section that really stood out to me. It's the part about satanic ritual abuse and Sigmund Freud's perverted colleague. The author just calls it insane.
And sure,
It is insane, but that's lazy. That doesn't tell me how it works.
It's such a missed opportunity for a deep dive.
A huge one. This is a classic example of associative overload. The author speculates she might be using ChatGPT to write this stuff. But the critiques should focus on the mechanics of that comment. She's literally stitching together Bridget McCrown, the Hollywood elite, Sigmund Freud, and Sumerian tech.
It's like keyword stuffing for engagement. That's what it feels like.
It's exactly that. It feels algorithmic because it's designed to maximize emotional triggers across totally different demographics.
So if you analyze it that way, as a kind of content strategy, rather than just madness,
You expose the grift. You show the reader why these disparate things are being combined. That is so much more damaging to her credibility than asking if she's off her meds.
it removes the author's emotion from the equation and just leaves the cold, hard manipulation exposed for everyone to see.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of cold, hard facts, the text does try to offer a counter-narrative. It tries to present the sanity side
Which is ironically represented here by Nick Fuentes.
of all people, yeah.
This brings us to the third point. That argument for the simple explanation needs to be bolstered with the specific evidence the author cites. It needs to create a much sharper contrast.
I'm glad you said that because the sanity argument felt incredibly weak to me. It's buried under pages of mockery.
Totally buried.
The author mentions a hicklib with a personal grievance probably took the shot, but it's just tossed out there. It's a throwaway line.
It is.
If the goal is to contrast fantasy with reality, then reality needs to weigh more than a feather.
You have to arm the reality argument. And the best way to do that is to explicitly use the principle of Occam's razor.
Right.
You need to weigh the two competing narratives side by side. And the crazy thing is, the text has the data to do this. It just squanders it.
You're talking about the list of the other shootings?
Yes. The text references Audrey Hale, the Minneapolis church shooting, the Texas incident. But right now, they're just listed as part of a rant. They need to be pulled out and presented as a pattern. These are data points. They establish a baseline of what the author calls grounded violence.
So you set up a direct confrontation.
Visually and textually. You say, okay, on the left side of the scale, we have the statistical probability of a grievance shooting, supported by these 3 recent concrete examples.
Right.
And on the right side of the scale, you have clockwork elves, transdimensional beings, and demons.
When you actually frame it that way, the gap it's massive. It's a canyon.
It highlights the absurdity without the author needing to scream about it. You don't need to tell the reader that transdimensional beings is a less likely explanation than an angry guy with a gun.
You just need to show them the evidence side by side.
And let them connect the dots. The author is so busy laughing at the elves right now that they completely forgot to build the case for the gunman.
That seems to be the running theme here, though, assuming the reader is already on the inside.
Yes.
The author assumes we all know the lore. And frankly, there were moments I had to stop and Google things, which is just death for a commentary piece.
It pulls you right out. Which is our fourth point. Providing context tags for these specific lore references will make sure the argument lands with an audience that isn't deep in this specific internet subculture.
I absolutely got stuck on the maroon shirts.
I bet you did.
The text just says Owens flagged maroon shirts and then moves on. I was so confused. Is this a fashion critique? Is it some kind of uniform? What is happening?
And that's a perfect example of the problem. If you don't explain the internal logic, the author starts to sound just as paranoid as the subject.
Right.
The author needs to add a quick parenthetical, explain that Owens identified maroon shirts as markers of the conspirator. It's basically a gang-stalking narrative where random people are actually federal agents signaling each other.
Okay, see, that changes everything. Without that explanation, it's a meaningless random detail.
But with that explanation, it's evidence of severe paranoia.
Exactly.
The same thing goes for Project Looking Glass. The text just drops that name like it's a household term. Oh, she says they use Project Looking Glass.
I'll admit, I thought that was a metaphor.
Most readers will. They'll think it's a reference to Alice in Wonderland or something.
I thought it was just the author using poetic license.
And that confusion completely kills the critique. The author needs a tag, something like Project Looking Glass, an alleged CIA technology that conspiracy theorists believe allows the government to view the future.
Ah.
Once you define it, the reader gets the leap. They understand we aren't talking about political corruption anymore. We're talking about a sci-fi thriller script.
It brings the reader into the joke. If they don't understand the reference, they can't appreciate the absurdity of it.
And there's an even more dangerous blurring of the lines with the purgatory witness.
Oh, man.
The text mentions a witness in purgatory testifying in a dream. And reading it, I honestly couldn't tell if the author was being satirical or if Owens actually claimed
I assumed it was satire. I mean, it has to be satire, right?
that ambiguity is a failure of the writing. If Owens actually used dream evidence from a witness in purgatory as a source,
That's a bombshell of irrationality.
it's a bombshell. But if the reader just thinks the author is being hyperbolic to make a point, the point is totally lost.
So the author needs to be explicit. Just state, this was a dream sequence that was presented as actual evidence.
Yes, it really all comes down to translation. The author is fluent in internet deep lore and needs to translate it into general audience English.
It's about documentation, really. If this piece is just for the in-group, then fine, keep the jargon.
Sure.
To do that, you have to hold the reader's hand through the insanity. You can't just throw them into the deep end of Sumerian tech and expect them to swim.
It's interesting, though, the choice to use Nick Fuentes as the anchor for sanity. Given his reputation, that's a heavy narrative choice.
It's a total high-wire act.
The text alludes to it, calling him someone I can't stand. But does it actually work?
I think it does. Or it can. The irony that he is the voice of reason here is the strongest rhetorical device the author has, as long as they don't fumble it.
Mm-hmm.
The critique isn't to remove Fuentes. It's to let the structural contrast we talked about make him look sane by comparison.
Right. So you don't need to defend him at all. You just need to show that the other side has gone so far off the map that the guy on the fringe suddenly looks like he's in the center.
Exactly. But that irony only works if the insanity is clearly defined and contextualized. If the reader is confused about the maroon shirts or the purgatory witness, they might just think everyone involved in this story is crazy.
Including the author.
Including the author, and that's the real risk. If you stare too long into the abyss without a map.
Mm-hmm. You just start to look like part of the abyss yourself.
So let's pull this all back to some actionable steps. This draft has a ton of raw energy, but it's just firing in every direction.
It needs discipline.
It needs a rewrite that respects the reader's time and their intelligence. So first, the structure.
Mm-hmm.
Way to time travel. Make the widening investigation the actual backbone of the essay.
Okay, second, the tone. Stop trying to out-insult the internet. You can't win a mudslinging contest with a pig.
You can't.
You have to stand back and dissect the mud. Use terms like unfalsifiable narratives and associative overload to dismantle the logic, not the person.
Perfect. Third, respect the boring truth. Occam's razor is your best friend. Don't just mock the elves, prove the gunman.
Right.
Use those data points about recent shootings to build a fortress of reality that makes the fantasy look completely ridiculous by comparison.
And finally, translate the lore. Don't assume I know what a diligent Denzian is or what Project Looking Glass is supposed to be. Explain the internal logic of the conspiracy so that when you tear it down, I understand exactly what's collapsing and why it matters.
The goal here is to move this piece from being a reaction rant into a definitive commentary. We want this to be the record that people look back on to understand just how strange this whole cultural moment became.
It's a fascinating subject. It really is. It just needs a steady hand to guide us through it.
The raw materials are all there. That insight about the investigation widening is genuinely brilliant. Now the author just needs to do the work to make the rest of the piece live up to that insight.
I'm excited to see it.
Resubmit the revised draft for a final polish once you've made these changes. Thank you for submitting your work to the critique.
We look forward to seeing your progress.